Hey everybody, this is Perch. Hey, welcome. Glad you're here.
We are in.
Look at this. I have two computers going, so now I've got an ad playing. That's terrible. Anyway, thanks for joining here on a Friday. I'm glad that you could make it. And I'm not sure what guests we're going to have. I had a couple people who said they wanted to join. They're nowhere to be seen, so you may be stuck with me, which would be terrible, absolutely terrible. But it's Friday. Got to get down on Friday, so it is a good time for all of us here. And as such, I have to point out, so Patron has been doing a terrible job of actually, responding to my blatant trolling. So I think it's time to announce Pumpkin Spice Macaroni and Cheese as the new sponsor of this show. I think this is the appropriate right thing to do. So, by the way, if anyone does want to come in and join, just shoot me a note. I'll try and pay attention to it. But we're also going to answer your questions and all that kind of stuff. Grab yourself some scotch. I've got some nice Bullet bourbon. It's not scotch, but bourbon, I should say, here that I'm enjoying. It's we're having a good time. It's been a crazy week. Thankfully, no pure insanity that we've had. Like the last two times, we had Bendis, of course, right before we went on the air, get the announcement that he was leaving, and then we had Ruth Bader Ginsburg news broke literally as we were going on the air. So. Today we just have pumpkin spice macaroni and cheese dinner. So what could possibly go wrong? I like how they can't even go with a picture of her eating this. That makes a lot of sense. Anyway, I have something I wanted to show you guys. So please do bring your question in, everything, and we'll get to all that. But I started to grab some files that I thought might be of interest to you, just as something to look at. This is, in terms of some memories. By the way, hello again, everybody. I wanted to share some comics that came out this week. Now, there's a wonderful Twitter account called The Spinner Rack that you can get to. It will talk about the comics that came out on this particular day. And just by way of putting some comics out there, I wanted to show some things that came out this week in Comic Land, just as a way to kind of remind people of some of the comics that came out over years past. There's some pretty crazy pretty fire shot fast here. So this is through the years of comics that came out on this week back in the past. I'm curious if anybody in the chat read any of these, if there's some famous ones. I mean, I collected just about everything. What always struck me, by the way, is Warlord. It was the comic that I enjoyed, that comic. But if there was one comic that always was available on the shelves, it never was gone. I mean, I could go into a Safeway or into a gas station or anything. Warlord was always there. It's funny to see those drawings. Now, I always wondered how that comic held on as long as it did, because it did just seem to keep going and going. And I could never digest why that kept going. But anyway, some neat things. Hey, by the way, questions as they come in, I'll ask them as I put them on. Yeah, I've heard this too. Actually, I do think we're getting a Vixen comic coming. I think we're getting a short limited series Vixen comic, but I've heard that now from 4 different unrelated places. The way I think about rumors, by the way, is that I have a bunch of different people I talk to. I won't claim to have like the insider, connection on anybody, but I talk to a number of people. And generally speaking, people tell me things. I do keep my promises. If somebody tells me to keep it quiet, I do. But if I hear things from unrelated sources, like, hey, I think this is coming, then pretty soon you get that correlation going and it starts to come together. So that's the truth, Vixen. I do think there's some solid evidence, proof that we are getting Vixen in one of 2 forms, either a comic or we're getting her return to part of the Justice League. I've heard that as well. So not sure what we're getting, but we are getting Vixen. I think Vixen is definitely coming on. Hello, everybody, by the way. Thank you for joining us. Glad you're here on this Friday. Hopefully it stopped raining here for a brief period of time. The clouds have parted, but it has been raining like a bastard all day today and just really, really hard. I sit right underneath a skylight, so hopefully that is not going to be hitting us here. So we will see if it starts to become an issue. Switching over to Marvel for a second, just again, curious who bought these and in the chat. It's just cool to kind of look at some of this stuff. Here is some Marvel comics that were out this week. There's some on here too. Some pretty pretty legendary comics. I mean, you definitely had some key X-Men bit. That Quasar Fantastic Four. I remember. I think I had all these. Yeah, it's a crazy part. It's weird that Marvel has definitely tried to go back to the Champions a few times, and it just never really got there like they intended. But at any rate, it's funny to see these books. I love to look back through this. Here's a question from Robert. Did you hear about Riley's Batman Warzone story that's very anti-cop? You think it was a case they hired him and he put out a story, now they're stuck with it? Or do you think intent? A little bit of neither. I don't think it was an intent. I think that a company like AT&T is not really going to want to come down hard any direction. They're not going to want to touch this kind of stuff. That's where even like there's some creators I've heard that would love to pitch kind of what Eric Larson did this week with a I endorse Biden kind of cover. They like to, state some things inside the comic, and they're being told no. And it's a lot of it is just corporations don't want to weigh in on that level. So I don't believe that it's intentional. And I think that I don't know if it's as anti-cop as the reports are. We'll have to see it. But at least from what I believe and what I've seen, I think it infers some things. I don't think it's quite as anti-cop as maybe people fear it will be. But keep in mind that the idea of Batman addressing police violence and some of that stuff is not a new topic. I mean, I think Frank Miller has done it. Lots of people have done it. So it'll be interesting to see. You look at that and go, okay, is this just kind of standard Batman versus police stuff, or is there something more topical in there? I'm not sure. I tend to doubt it will be heavily political or heavily topical, but we'll see. We'll see. Is Schnick continuing on the Flash? I hear yes, but again, I think a lot of things in DC are all over the place right now. So we'll see again. But I do hear yes. Maybe DC will go the same anti-royalty route it did with Black Lightning and introduce. Well, maybe. Somebody brought up earlier, like in one of the, I went into Twitter and remembered that I've got direct messaging turned on. And so I clicked over in that tab, which it doesn't do a great job alerting you. And it's like, hey, I had stuff since May. So I went through and read and tried to respond to everything. I'm most of the way through it now. But somebody brought up like, who is DC's Black Panther character? And it was an interesting question because, and I'm curious what people think in the chat. I'm not sure that they have one really. I mean, they definitely have plenty of strong Black characters, but the thing that makes Black Panther work is that he can work in a number of different settings. You have him as Avenger, you have him as Solo, you have him as a spy. You've got a bunch of versatility there. You don't have the same thing with Cyborg. You've never really committed to Black Lightning, and there's some royalty issues there as well. And then you have newer characters like Simon Baz and others, but it just, they can certainly tap into the Milestone character, but it dawned on me. Who is the Black Panther of DC, and who? Because you got to imagine DC would like to build up a character and start to promote, especially outside of the comics. And I'm not sure they have the ready-made character. Red Lion says Yul Carter. It's an interesting. I don't know. It stumped me. To be honest, it was surprising. To me. Somebody here points out, to be fair, yeah, a lot of Batman is anti-cop. Absolutely. Bullock. What's interesting to me is that Bullock was definitely a dirty cop. And did we ever get a real Bullock redemption arc, or did they just start writing him less dirty? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe I missed those issues where they really kind of fixed that thing up. I don't know. What do we think will happen to Wally? Well, if people watch The Flash, we can talk a little bit about that. We had a new Flash issue, and we had Speed Metal come out. Speed Metal was very much a Wally center stage issue. It was a fun issue. Both those Flash comics were pretty solid, and enjoyed kind of the end of his run. I think it was just solid, good comics. But it does beg the question, like it felt like kind of like when you go to a concert and the band plays a greatest hits bit. And it's like it was enjoyable. It was good, and I'm left wondering now what are they going to do more with Wally? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if 6 months from now we're like, hey, what happened to Wally? They haven't really put him in anything. I like. Well, I guess he'll be in death metal, but I'm not convinced that we've got a plan for Wally yet. But it was a good issue to really go through. Anyway, whatever. Once again, if anyone wants to join me, shoot me a note, and we'll figure out how to get you in here. I should probably open up Twitter. I don't know what I'm doing. I am going to not drink. Whenever I do this by myself, I don't drink nearly as fast, which is a fatal flaw of doing these like this. Anyway, have I heard anything about Aquaman and who will be taking over that book? I have not. I've heard nothing about Aquaman. So that's an interesting question. I imagine they're definitely going to want to do something with it. They will have another movie coming out at some point. They're going to want to do something, but I don't know. I don't know what that would be. So anyway, where else we go? We got what's up? I picked She-Hulk #1. Don't read. What makes X-Men a mutant but not She-Hulk? Join the Mutant Island. She could. So this is okay. So She-Hulk was made in the sense that Jennifer Walters had the blood transfusion from cousin Bruce, and that's how she got her superhuman powers. This is the old dirty needles. Well, I don't want to say it that way. This is the accidental superhuman powers. Spider bites you, fly your ship into cosmic rays. You get injected by some super steroids or what have you that turns you into a superhero. Where there's mutants are born, it's a birth defect or power that is part of your DNA. So you're in effect a different, a whole different kind of species in a way. Well, not in a way, you are. So that's the difference between Walters. And because she doesn't have to spend, this is the worst possible way to describe mutants and non-mutants, I think, possible. Anyway, I think that, so She-Hulk can't use the Krakoa gates to go over and take part in the tiki bar orgies that they have over there, which is a bummer. So she's got to she's got to get on Kate Pryde's ship and sail on in there on the side if she wants to be part of those adventures. And it's not clear. They're kind of segregationists there in Krakoa. They're not letting the humans or the Hulks over there. But, you got to imagine She-Hulk could smash it up pretty good at some of these parties. So, she'd like to, but it's not for her. It's not for you. So there you go. We have a bunch of other questions. I'll get caught up here, but let me flip this over to some other comics here. Whoops, I need to get rid of the old comments. Here we go. I hope people are having a good Friday. It has been, it was a quieter week. So this that I'm about to show, by the way, of some of these comics. Now here gets to kind of a lot of comics very, very fond to my heart here because you got a bunch of stuff here. I mean, this will bring back some crazy memories here. First of all, we got some Mutant Massacre stuff with Daredevil. That was a pretty nice fight with Sabretooth. Daredevil handled the big fight. You got Blevins, I believe, over there on Cloak and Dagger. This is back when Web and Spider-Man was pretty dark in a lot of ways. There's that wonderful kind of X-Men crossover where the core X-Men get de-aged. You get the first X-Babies from Mojo, and you get the New Mutants have to don their new costumes. They were pretty well designed for never really showing up. Longshot was there. I always loved the Marvel Handbook books. I always thought they were done very well. It was always cool. This blew my mind, by the way, where, and this just sounds silly, but imagine, Kid Perch back in the 80s, and you took those Marvel Universe copies and then you'd lay them side by side and you'd get the long poster of all the characters running. And that was always pretty awesome. And then I remember I finally bought the poster that collected all this stuff. And it was, some John Byrne, just great stuff. I mean, holy shit, that was a good stuff. But anyway, we got some Epic in there. There's Star. I mean, this was Marvel back doing YA before YA was cool, doing Star comics with Spider-Ham. You had Strikeforce Morituri, the WCA, and then of course you got New Universe, the comic that Jim Shooter certainly did a lot of, and then he left, and John Byrne blew up Pittsburgh. I mean, it was crazy stuff. This was a great run. I mean, these comics, there's a lot in there. So absolutely some great stuff. As these live streams get more popular, I'm going to do a more crappy job of answering questions. Yes, gates only allow mutants. I think the human just bounces off like they hit glass. They just can't go through that. Is the orgy thing really happening, or is that an exaggeration? It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you do get the sense. I mean, they've said a few times mutants are supposed to go and spread the love, and they seem to be having a party a lot of the time. So that's one good thing about Ten of Swords is they're going to interrupt the the party for, and a party doesn't necessarily mean orgy, but there definitely seems to be an orgy overtone. I'm just throwing that out there. As some X-Men fan can come in here and downvote and disagree with me. That'd be cool. Let's see what else is going on. The best decade for comics, to me, the 80s. The 80s are my favorite, and there's a sentimental reason. I think I really got my comics expanded personally in that area. I think you had the newsstand was clocking pretty good. Comics in the 80s started to feel like, at least from a business standpoint, a little bit pervasive, like they were back in the 40s, where you had young people and old people all reading comics, and there wasn't necessarily that stigma. I think the 80s were a pretty good era for stories, art, and business. You had some amazing artists during that time period. Just really, really good stuff. Anyway, sorry to hear that it wasn't quiet. Lots of upheaval at work. I'm sorry to hear that. It was a quiet week here. Death metal hasn't been doing it for me. Yeah, I mean, death metal's it's the pace is strange. I'm curious what some of you guys think about that. It is as the crescendo, the big kind of overarching top. It's so divorced from normal DC continuity, and it's so different. And DC has played with Elseworld stuff so much and the Black Label stuff so much. It feels like this is not really happening. It feels it's weird. Metal felt very hooked in to the current comics. That sense of danger really was there. And in this one, it feels like it's playing off in some alternate reality a little bit. It's interesting. It just doesn't feel the same. So I'm curious if who's really enjoying that. Are you guys really enjoying that? And what do you think of that? Is Franklin Richards truly a mutant? They say yes, but yeah, I mean, technically you could be genetically altered and then the child is a mutant because you're born with those powers. That classification, it makes you a mutant. He can go through the gates, as it turns out. He can go hang out with those orgies. That's creepy. Anyway, yes, I know Spider-Ham isn't YA, but I'm being a little facetious here. But it's people say Dogman is YA. If Dogman is YA, I'm calling Spider-Ham YA. But you're correct here. Spoilers. Yikes. Robert, what are you saying? I'm not going to post that. Well, I guess it's in the chat, so everybody's already seen it. So yeah, apparently this is a relationship in Three Jokers. So thanks a lot, Robert. You spoiled it for people. I mean, Three Jokers is an Elseworlds a type story. It's out of continuity. So I mean, there's been, I think, certainly the cartoon had Barbara shack up with Bruce. And then I think there was a comic book where she did as well. She was pregnant and it was Bruce's and she was dating Dick at the time, but Dick was out of town and something. Do you guys remember this, or was this? Yeah, I don't know. So I'm sorry, but it was in the chat. I don't know what to say. I shouldn't have put that up on the screen. Robert, didn't they screw up Mr. Fantastic's arm in those covers? I believe so. It stretched for a bunch of the covers. So, there you have it. To the earlier question, there are, DC does have prominent black characters, but Jon Stewart is probably the best answer. I can't believe I neglected Jon Stewart earlier. I think Jon Stewart is probably the best, kind of all-round character they can build off of. But it is weird that DC doesn't have a true. They haven't focused on kind of really elevating a black character. They've done more with Jon Stewart lately. I think Jon Stewart is a good pick. That's sheesh. How could I forget Jon Stewart? Didn't Shooter want to reboot Marvel and the new universe was the alternative? I've heard two stories. I've heard, and I think the truthful one is that Shooter more wanted to experiment in something I think that was similarly described to what they ultimately did with the Ultimate Universe. Not necessarily reboot all of Marvel, but basically, see if they could get, grow it to be parallel in terms of strength, and then maybe put things up. Hey, Fatal J. Hey, everybody. In here. Some people probably said they would join, and I completely missed it because I'm frantically, jumping through here. I do. Somebody's mentioned Cloak and Dagger. Absolutely, Cloak and Dagger was a cool comic back in the day. That was a cool comic. I think Cloak and Dagger is one that is ready made to do some pretty nice stuff today, and they're just not doing much. A lot of good comments in the chat. We are moving like crazy. Yes. Okay. Do I read? Have I read Big Girls or Firepower for Image? Yes, and yes. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, Image has some good books out there. I mean, I mentioned this somewhere else that I am a sucker for new concepts, even if they're not done terribly well. I like books that are doing something new. I think those are cool. I think that when books are repetitive, that's what turns me off faster than anything. And I think that a lot of that's a problem with a lot of the slice of life, the books that are non-Kate books. So I'll tell you, I'll go into this story for a moment here. I got onto this segment, but I'm curious who can relate to this. There was a time in the 90s in particular where the superhero books all started to feel very much the same. The teams all had the one big guy, the one kind of smart woman, the slutty woman, the Wolverine type character, the tactician. You had these kinds of team makeups that looked very much the same. And whether it was, and over an Image, you had Youngblood, and you had Cyberforce, and you had Wetworks, and you had Wildcats, and then the X-Men started to look that way. And then you started the New Mutants, and then X-Force, and you started to get these very similar team makeups. And there was a lot of comments at the time about, hey, Kate books are all kind of looking the same, sounding the same, feeling the same. And it got very repetitive. And through that, you saw a rise in the indies. You saw a lot of, pretty interesting stuff develop out with Vertigo, certainly other books within Image. You saw a lot of kind of growth at the end. A lot of it was people wanting an antidote from the same kind of books. Well, today in 2020, we've got a similar thing going on in a different space. People are still saying, hey, people are going to get tired of Kate books. I'm not as sure that's going to be the case. The Kate books don't read all the same. They do read different depending on the book and the creator. But what does read the same is a lot of the YA stuff, a lot of the slice of life kind of independent, maybe not YA, but a lot of the indie books are starting to feel very similar. And I think that you're seeing a bit of a reaction to that some people describe as, these people are hating, this gender or this thing or that thing. But at the base level, it's a lot of very similar stories. I mean, if you want kind of a coming of age, somebody discovering their sexuality, they've got some friends, they're in high school, there's some kind of, normie-like thing that's going on in the background, and then a supernatural thing happens, and it forces people to examine themselves. I mean, I've just described like 50 books that you can find in the, young adult section at the bookstore. And so as I see these titles announced, and there's a couple others, it's like it's the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that's causing it's certainly causing some exhaustion. And if you are trying to put out one of those books and you're getting pushback, you're not getting the sales you want. I mean, at least part of that is because you've got, you're competing with like 50 other books out there in any given month. And I think that's a problem. So, and by the way, if you love that genre, just like the people who loved kind of the superhero Kate genre in the 90s, then, you're happy. You're getting lots of content. But for the mass market, it's a lot in one area. And it also makes it very hard to stand out. So that's my kind of, my general philosophy here and my feeling. I think that's a problem people are going to have to face. And I think there are a lot of indie creators out there who complain about kind of, hey, the comic fans are jerks. They're not going for my book. And I'm sure there are some, but I think there's also the fact that, hey, you're facing stiff competition because you got like 20 of you all doing the same thing. And that's going to hurt your numbers no matter what you do. It's Raina Telgemeier is always going to be okay, but not everybody's Raina Telgemeier. I'm just saying. Put up some other comics here. This one is nifty here. Let's do this. There we go. Meanwhile, I'll get some other questions. I apologize for that little segue kind of out in a different cake. By the way, before we get to it, so again, any of these comics you're buying, it gives some good memories here. The Batman Hulk comic is a good memory, but that Batman Hawk and Dove, there's just some good stuff. There's Warlord again. Warlord shows up everywhere. There's a lot. I liked Warlord, but man, he was omnipresent. If you were in the 80s, it was there. What do I think will happen with Roy Harper? I think they'll get around to doing something with Roy Harper again. I mean, they've got to figure out how to unwind more of Heroes in Crisis, and maybe that's what Death Metal is going to do in the end. It's like, hey, look at all these people brought back to life. I have a feeling there's going to be that yay kind of moment where they bring a bunch of these folks back. It just feels like DC is kind of, awkwardly trying to reverse course as much as possible from Heroes in Crisis. And I think he'll be back. He'll be back. I mean, and here you go. It's a shame Stewart's best stuff. Yeah, Green Lantern Mosaic was a good. I don't think they've had a great John Stewart story in a while, and I don't think it'd be that hard to do a great John Stewart story. I think that he's a really cool character, and I think there's a lot that can be done. Yeah, and that's true. I think they have gone out of their way, and maybe this is just in some ways healthier. I think DC has gone out of their way not to make kind of race really built into the backstory, the origin. Of course, Black Panther is rooted in the secret African nation, Wakanda, and all the rest. So it's very much part of his identity. And with John Stewart, he's flying around space, he's meeting aliens, so it's become less of a topic. I find that refreshing, but it is a case where as they move into movies and other things, I mean, yeah, John Stewart would be, like I said, a good one to build around, I think. Adelis Hodge. I mean, we'll see. The casting's gotten stranger. I've really hated a lot of the people that get cast at things, and then it turns out it's not so bad. It turns out working out. I would have never gone for Chuck as Shazam, but it worked out. I thought it was he did a good job with it. So but what do I know? People shouldn't. I've learned not to trust my judgment, I think is probably the best way to put it. Wow, I've lost all control over what's going on. Let's see, Vixen, Cobra Kai. Hey, no, I don't think that. You bring up a funny point here. Is that one thing about Marvel and DC that cracks me up is that the creators and the editors and other people are watching Netflix and Amazon Prime, and they're tuned into pop culture. They're reading this stuff, they're watching that stuff. But then they don't take advantage of it. Like there are things that get rolled out that if they do, they copy it like way after it's no longer popular. So now that Cobra Kai is out and it is a very popular show, I mean, I'm thinking, I don't know about the Karate Kid, but I mean, hey, now get that Shang-Chi, I mean, if you can't invent it, cool, copy what's there. I don't know. I feel like we're going to get the Raised by Wolves, comic book kind of copy like 2 years from now. And it'll be like, what are you doing? Nobody, too late. Just very, very too late. Anyway, this is an interesting point, and I agree with this, by the way. The image is struggling a little bit in that it needs some segmentation. I think it needs imprints, or maybe they need to do something completely new for comics and actually have a dedicated like sci-fi line, horror line, and a label maybe that they put. It feels weird to tag it with a genre, but I think that would help image out a little bit of like, this is the hero universe, this is the horror universe, this is the whatever it is. I'm not talking a blended universe. I don't think you have to suddenly, figure out how you put these comics in the same universe. You don't need to do that, but I do think it would help a little bit to say, this is our horror line, this is our sci-fi line, etc. I think Image should do that. If they're not going to do it, Boom should do it. If Boom doesn't do it, I mean, well, it would be a no-brainer. I think publishers need to be able to market and explain better what it is they're doing to people. I've given this advice to people doing crowdfunding as well. Like, don't be shy in the description to kind of call out what you are. Just make it clear. This is a book for horror fans. Just say it. There are people looking for that kind of stuff. Granted, you may lose somebody who doesn't want horror, but you don't want that customer anyway. You don't want to trick somebody into buying your comic and then realizing it's horror. And then, I mean, it's just, you're only going to get one sale if that's the case. So I think it's better to describe it. I would do that. There's a part of, yikes. Sure. The problem with this is now I'm going back and reading. I'm like, oh yeah, here's some people commenting on something I talked about like 5 minutes ago, which is bad news. We'll go on down. Again, thank you everybody for joining. We got a big crowd in here now. We got like 80 some odd people. Thank you again for spending some of your Friday night with me. Again, I'm holding out. I'm supposed to have a guest here that I'm kind of holding the place for, but I'm about to give up on that. But that's okay. We will figure it out and push along. Every now and then, it's actually probably cool to to do this. I had Ian and Robert last week. Thank you guys both very much for joining. Robert's ready to jump in. We can pull you in a minute, but just I also like to space it out, and I did. Somebody promised they'd be here, so oh well. It is what it is. I'm getting some questions answered, and all is going. Hey, he's talking about something now. Wouldn't it be funny? I think you were talking about this before I was talking about this, and this is exactly right. You can pick up a comic thinking it's one thing and not the other thing. Like I had some customers come in picking up Savage Dragon, thinking it was going to be kind of a superhero police book, and not realizing that Dragon Jr. was going to be shooting people across the room. That was a good time. That was a good time for me. I love it. By the way, I absolutely love it. I'm sure Yule does as well. He's in the chat. I love it when publishers ship you a comic and then, dramatically change direction and don't tell you. And, you put something out on the shelf that then a parent picks up and finds, and then they're pissed. That's a great time. I'm so glad. Publishers should do that more often. That makes our lives easier. We love it. Phew, all good stuff. Hey, good evening. Thank you very much. And good evening to you. And good evening to everybody in the chat. One of the advantages, I guess, I don't have the guests here is I'm answering questions a little bit quicker in this case. Every now and then the chat jumps and I have to scroll back up. Which dove do I prefer? I prefer the lady dove. I know that that's not the original dove, but I prefer lady dove. I think there was a lot of cool things they were doing with lady dove. That's not the bet. Well, why not? I'm having some bourbon here, so I can be forgiven for saying that. Do we think we'll get a JSA book? Yes, I think we're going to get in 2021. I think that there's they're going to want to tie in some movies. I think that there's a lot of cool reasons why. I think that I absolutely think that we'll get a JSA book, and I think sooner than later. I think it's money and it's something people know, and that's all pretty good stuff. I'm trying to. Do I think indies will continue to take more of the industry percentage? I do, and I think I no longer know if this is a video that went out or is coming out. I've done a bunch, and I've got videos scheduled through next week, and there's a bunch of topics in there, and I'm all muddled, especially the more I drink. So I've forgotten what's where, but. Here's an interesting thing to kind of put in your mind, because there are people spat out numbers all the time and are the big two, succeeding, failing, and everything else. But here's a kind of a quick rule of thumb way to look at it. It depends on how you count. So the crazy part is the indies are if the indies counts, say Viz and all the manga coming in, and the indies count Scholastic and all of that content coming in, then the indies are not only doing well. They far exceed that group starts to get really large between Marvel and DC, start to pale in comparison to that giant slice of pie. Now, most people don't count it that way, but I do think you're looking at some moves coming up within comics that I think are going to be pretty nuts. I do think I've heard now. I'm not revealing any secrets here, but Scholastic is definitely in the mood and the market to buy some, either buy a publisher or get into older content past YA. Now, why would they do this? Because they've captured an audience and they've got them in the YA, and they're making some good money there, and they want to, age with that customer. Of course they do. It makes complete business sense. And if they start doing that, that's a powerhouse. I mean, it's weird to see, DC and Marvel kind of look at each other, but the threat is those guys. And then on top of that, if somebody like, and I'll say this part carefully, if somebody like, say, Shonen Jump or one of the big manga producers stops working with Viz, or Viz gets purchased by somebody like Scholastic, I mean the whole world tips over. It's going to be a very different world. And so I mean it's interesting to see where it all goes. I do think that we've lived for several decades now of Marvel being dominant. They've been the number one. You've had eras where DC has passed them for a few years and everything else, but then it comes back around. But you've had Marvel very, very dominant. And I think if we look to the next 20 years, I think we're going to look at a new world where Marvel and DC both have to fight a lot more for their territory. And they're not going to be the default number one anymore. I think that is an inevitable world. And it's not going to be Image or Boom or Vault or somebody like that coming up. it's going to be, one of these other groups, passing things up. It's an interesting piece. Boys season 2. Yeah, I'm going through it. I am not a fan of the one, drop one episode a week. I understand that's how TV has been for, eternia. But once you get used to streaming stuff, then you're, now it's like, hey, where's my episode? The Boys is funny because I'm watching right now a few shows. I'm watching The Boys. I'm watching Ratchet on Netflix, which that's all right. I'm watching the Lovecraft Country. I'm watching Raised by Wolves and several other things. And The Boys brings a tension. When you watch that show, even though there's a lot of comedy and a lot of kind of things going on, there's a tension to that show that is just always there in the background. You're always waiting for it to go bad. They make you feel tense. Your Starlight's going to get exposed. What's going to happen? At what point is Homelander going to snap and burn some people alive and all the rest? I think The Boys, it's a well-constructed show. I like it. I think it's an example of a show that is clearly charting its own path from the comic, but it still retains a feeling of the comic and it's its own thing. And I think it's great. I think Boys is a good adaptation. And I will think, who will take over Legion of Superheroes when Bendis is gone? Let it be Venditti. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think he would do a great job with Venditti would do a great job with Legion of Superheroes. I love Legion of Superheroes. From the conversation I had with Joe Claro several weeks ago, that's one of his 5 favorite titles too. And a great Legion of Superheroes book is just that's all I ask for 2021. Please let me have it. That's all I need. Please. Oh yeah, my downvote friend has made their appearance. Well, it's all good. Hey, if anybody wants to, upvote the video. Like I said, what's the old phrase? Smash that like button, like Aunt May smashed her way through the Hamptons back in trouble. Go ahead. Why not? I always get to. I'm all right. It's all fine to me. I'm not sure what upvotes and downvotes do for me. I get that dopamine rush, which is good. But I'm drinking bourbon. I don't need it, so I'm all good. Hickman, I think Hickman would have been good for Legion, but given what we're seeing with X-Men and kind of that whole universe, I'm looking for not a dense, I'm reading Decorum as well from Hickman. I want to see a Legion of Superheroes that kind of is more like it was back in the 80s, a little not as heavy, but still telling some pretty expansive stories. I just want to see a cool Legion that is doing cool stuff. That's all I know. Mark Waid taking over Superman after Bendis. I still don't think so. We'll see. But I don't think he's going to get an ongoing. Dawn. Yeah, this is from earlier. I like Dawn. I think Dawn. I think that what they've told with Dawn is pretty awesome. Restructuring at DC. No, I don't think they're going to do digital. So Suicide Squad, I think Suicide Squad is going to be all about retooling that comic to have really good synergy with the upcoming movie. I think Suicide Squad is the comic to watch in 2021. And I tell you for this reason. We're going to see a DC that's way more aligned with Warner Media and all these kind of things. We're going to see a comic and media tightness that we haven't seen before. And I think that Suicide Squad is going to be really one to watch to see how they do this. Who's the writer they're going to put on it? How are they going to approach it? Is Tom Taylor coming back on it? If I'm DC, though, I'm looking at going, Tom Taylor is making me money on Deceased. I think we can get Tom Taylor. I would get him away from Marvel and doing this Dark Age, this thing he's doing over there. And I would just try and say, let Tom Taylor do very similar things to what Sean Gordon Murphy's doing. Create a whole, little universe over there. Take off the brakes. Let him make us some money over there. The stuff that does really well will turn into animated movies and other things. But get him out of main continuity. He's wasted there a little bit. I think Suicide Squad's going to be a very corporate created comic. That's my guess. I think it's going to be designed to really tightly align with the movie and then the spinoff series they're doing with John Cena. And I think that's what that's what we're getting. So welcome, B Brown. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I'm always happy to see you here. It's always very, very good. Yeah, that's true. I got him right in the first 30 seconds. This is a true statement by Gabriel. Every editor and publisher should be able to clearly and simply answer the question, who is this book for? I think if I was working at the publishers and I was in editorial, I would have as part of the training course of people coming into the company and creators I hire, like, be prepared to give a 60-second pitch on your book, on your property, on whatever you're managing at any time. And you should be able to say, here are the demographics, here's who this book is aimed at, here's the growth opportunities, here's where this book is going. Just, you should be training your people to think that way, and it would be so healthy. It just is a good business practice. It'd be really, really good to have that happen. Hey, I'm going to throw up some more comics here. I only have one more. I got to doing this late, and then I also was like, I need some bourbon, so I did not get as many of these as I can. But here's some more comics. Did I already show this one? That Spider-Ham. Ah, crap. I think I already showed this one. Damn it. Oh, there's some new stuff. I don't know. Spider-Ham's on there twice. I guess we all love Spider-Ham. But anyway, some more comics. There's some Marvel comics. Do you remember any of these? Some absolutely good stuff. That is great. I did. Thank you, everybody, for adding those likes. Another guy came in with well, we should just track this time to time. IDW hasn't published any Disney books in a while. It hasn't lost a license. I know it hasn't lost a license, but I also think Disney's not shuttling more work there, and I don't know that they're going to. So, yeah, I think, I don't know. IDW remains on kind of suicide watch for me. Whoops. Get some more things done. I should pour some more. Need to pour some more whiskey here. That is what is needed. Anyway, again, I'll say again, thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm glad that you're spending Friday with me. We cracked 100 people. How in the world? Thank you again very much. What books are doing it for me right now? I did a video a couple days-ish ago, or a week ago, I'm not sure, around some books that I thought were really good. I read everything. So just so you know, I read all the comics, and that's not an exaggeration. It sometimes takes me a while, but I do read all the comics. And the interesting question for me is, like, what do I go to first? And right now I do go to Daredevil first. I've been enjoying Black Magic. I really enjoy Gideon Falls quite a bit. I think that's a really nice book. I kind of like you are when you watch a train wreck. I go to Savage Dragon. I don't know why. I when it comes out, I read that comic almost first, because I'm like, let's see what they do in this one. That's always going on. I have the same feeling for Action Comics, by the way. The combo of John Romita Jr., who looks completely unenthused to be doing that job, and Bendis on Superman is like, is a train wreck kind of a comic. I'm not sure that really quantifies as doing it for me, but you take some pleasure for that. I'm not loving Decorum as much as I thought I did. I thought I would. Oblivion Song, I'm liking that quite a bit. I'm very sad to see Batman and the Outsiders stop with Brian Edward Hill. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of everything. I think that there's a lot of comics out there right now. I'm not hating Strange Adventures. A lot of people are, but I don't mind it that bad. Philadelphia, great book, absolutely great book. Some of the Harley Quinn Black and White and Red have been really good stories, and some have been just terrible. So it's I like The Plunge. I do like that comic. I do not like Resistance. So there you go. I don't know if that's enough. I can keep going. There's tons of comics. I want to like Die. I saw somebody in the chat mention Die, and I want to like it. I like the concept, but something about that book is just I can't. It just doesn't work for me. Like it does for others. What I think of Ten of Swords. So I did a video review on this, but I viewed this way. So it was a weird comic because on one hand, I did like that they're acknowledging some of the Alan Davis stuff, and I do like that we're digging into that. But it was served up in such a way that I have to believe a lot of people were completely lost by some of the stuff that's coming out. So some of the cooler reveals and the cooler parts of that universe and Otherworld and everything else, and it's how I feel about Excalibur. It's I don't know if it's Teenie Howard or it's that book. There's something about it that like we're digging into a lot of this continuity, but we're not explaining very well what it is we're doing. And it is so, you know, it makes you think, but at the same time, Marvel's saying they don't want to have this dense continuity. But then I don't know. It's not bad, but if I'm struggling with certain aspects of it, I've got to think that a lot of the readers are, or they're just not caring, in which case they're missing some of the cool stuff. The problem for me for Ten of Swords is going to be 24-ish. It's just a lot of comics. And if we are getting a kind of contest of champions sword battle, that could be cool. We could have some cool moments, but it's a lot of comics to have all that stuff. And I think it suffers a little bit from the, the problem with constant events is that you know that the consequences are going to be muted by the fact that you got to gear up for the next event. And so I'm hoping it's a good story. I'm hoping. My feeling is it will not result in a great story, but I want it to be a good story. If that makes any sense, I really, really do. But I don't know. On some other question, do I think DC is going to continue to do their horror comics line? Yes, I do think they'll continue to play in that. Absolutely, I do think they will continue to play in that a little bit. We've talked about a few of these things. I do think Bendis will ultimately leave Legion of Superheroes, probably sooner rather than later. There's a couple people saying hello. Again, hello everybody, and welcome to everyone who joined this chat. I'm glad you're here. We're talking comics, and it's a fun time. I still have no guest. We've had a couple people. We have Robert who's willing to tag in, but maybe I'm just going to finish this one off because we're blasting until my voice runs out. That's always fun. So yeah, it's good. Robert, we do need to have you on. I do really appreciate it. I try not to do the same person 2 weeks in a row. Just, I don't know, for some crazy, superstitious, insane reason. What is crazy about these comics is the kind of quality you got for just very little money. Yeah, this was a good time. At any rate, let's see. We're going down the line. Did Aparo ever do any work for Marvel? Yes. I really want to say yes. And then Norm Brayfogle, unfortunately, he has passed away, which is a shame. And unfortunately, there was not, like, comics has gotten to do a better job lately of acknowledging when people pass away. But there were a couple, there were some comments made, but not nearly enough. And I think he's got a wealth of material. That may not be a fair statement. I really like Norm Brayfogle, so I would love to see some things come on from him. Anyway, thank you very much. A lot of very nice comments in here about different videos I've done. I'm always interested, by the way, in hearing, people, when you like a video or dislike a video. I have a couple of people who just always downvote things, and so that's not really telling me what you disliked about it, but I do like it. It's also funny. I just want to, for everybody listening right now, if you disagree with something in the video, it's cool. I get people who sometimes write me like apology letters, like, "Hey, I really hate to say it, but I disagree with your opinion on something." You don't need to apologize. I mean, I think this is a problem of how people talk comics these days, where it's like you have to believe the person who's talking or you're an enemy. The whole point of this, I'm throwing out things that I believe, and I try and always identify this is a fact, this is an opinion, here's some data, you make up your own mind. It never am bothered if people disagree with me, ever. In fact, that's usually a good thing, because then it causes me to think a little bit, and then I do, and that's all good. What I think the odds are of Comcast launching a Universal Comics line, I think 0, but it's possible. I think it is possible that they would, but I think, if anything, I think they'll hand it out to somebody like a Dark Horse or somebody else to license it. I don't think they're not going to do anything themselves. I don't think they'd. I don't think they would. So we'll see. I tend to doubt it, though. Going down, looking at some other questions. We have now I'm getting calls. I'm getting like spam calls. I had some great conversations this week with some people that hopefully we'll do some more interviews, and I'm thrilled. I'm happy to do this. Yeah, downvotes are just engagement. So if you subscribe just to come in to downvote for some nefarious reason, you're adding to my. You're actually helping. So Yay. There you go. Mark Waid on Legion of Superheroes. That could work. It could work. I don't know. Mark Waid, I'd like to. So I'll throw this out there, which a bunch of people disagreed with when I said it before as well. There's something going on between Marvel and DC where you get like Tom Taylor doing X-Men Red over at Marvel, and then comes over to DC and knocks out of the park with Deceased. And then you get Tamaki over at Marvel doing She-Hulk and doing Wolverine. And, there are some people who like the run over there, but then she comes over and she does Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is a substantially better book over at DC than her stuff at Marvel. So what's going on with those? So Mark Waid, maybe Mark Waid on Legion of Superheroes would be good. I don't know. By the way, can anybody hear like the rain in the background? I'm curious because it has now started to officially rain like mad here. So that's pretty nuts. Anyway, lots of stuff. What kind of bourbon am I drinking tonight? Bullock. I need to drink better bourbon than this, but it's still good. Nothing wrong with it. It's nice and easy and convenient. The Woodinville Whiskey Company that's up the street is they've got some great whiskey too. It's smooth. It's really nice. And I've got a video from way back. Let me know again in the comments if anybody's seen this, but there's a way you smoke a glass using a little handheld kitchen torch. And I did believe it or not, I did a video of this actually, and it's up somewhere up in the channel about how you smoke a glass for kind of making another drink. It's some good stuff. I'm just telling you, lots of things. There's a lot of things. TV shows can make digital money. Why not comics? I mean, man, preach. I agree. You can do it. You just have to have a business mind, and what if DC stopped doing events for a time and focused on doing monthly comics? I mean, God bless America, please. I wish everybody would slow it down with events. I think the video that I posted earlier today, I think there's something happening that the publisher should take note of, and maybe this is something to be aware of, be worried about. Is I think that we're seeing a lot of the higher end comics sell a little bit more, and we're seeing the middle tier, right? So the middle class erode and start to get to suffer. And I think there's a problem there. I think it bears. I tried to really quickly summarize it in the video, but there's a bigger conversation to be had. I think there's a concerning thing there where you're seeing people gravitate to the top books, and in one hand that's good. But when your top books are limited series and events and things that have a finite run, it puts you in a position to be on a treadmill of constantly pumping out events, and some of those are not going to hit, or you're going to see that erosion continue. What you want is your middle class, your middle tier of books, and your lower end books to be slowly growing. That's really what you want to have happen. And those books, we're seeing those numbers decline. We're seeing everybody kind of shift up to the top. And if I was a publisher, I would be I'd be worried about that this would be alarm bells would be going off, that this isn't a good thing. Now, granted, this is anecdotal on my end. So, we'll see when the numbers fully come out. Comic-Con can do some stuff, but it's something to pay attention to. That worries me quite a bit. What are we doing here? Let's see. Some stuff about Mark Waid. That's good. Editing. I'd love a downvote. Everybody go to Shanghalla's channel and downvote it. Why so sensitive to downvotes? I'm joking. I promise. You can do whatever you want. It's funny. I find it amusing. None of this bothered me at all. And then this dude sent me the mail saying, I sub so I could downvote you. And it's like, I can't get that out of my head. Not the downvote. The obsessiveness of getting a subscription so you can be reminded to downvote. That's the part that stuck with me. I'm like, I wouldn't devote that much time to anybody. I mean, why would you do that? Thoughts of DC Universe. Thank you, by the way. I'm glad you love the channel and you're here. I really appreciate that. Thoughts of DC Universe becoming a comic subscription platform. Probably smart for them. I think it cleans it up a little bit. I mean, it was confusing on the Warner Media side to have DC Universe and HBO Max and what's there. And that's just that you don't want your customers to have to think that hard about where to get stuff. I think what probably DC should do is change their name to DC Max instead of DC Universe or DC Unlimited and sell bundles with HBO Max and just start to consolidate the brand as much as you can. That's probably a smart thing to do. I would definitely, if I was Warner Media, AT&T, I would definitely look for ways to cross-promote the comics with the media. And I'd go as far as to do things like, hey, did you love Doom Patrol? I mean, make these end-roll teasers. You know how Netflix, you finish the show and you get that little, the next show is going to start in 5 seconds and then it flips over. That's cool, but imagine if instead of that, you put a little pre-roll, which would cost you nothing as an internship to say, hey, if you're enjoying, Doom Patrol, you realize we've got a comic of Doom Patrol and trade paperbacks and other things. You can check it out on this digital platform or go to your local comic shop. Even if it was a still screen, kind of reminding people of this, start cross-promoting that stuff, especially when you go to HBO Max and there's a whole DC universe section and it's laid out reasonably well. And it's like, you should be blasting the fact that you've got comics all over there, and not just comics, toys, T-shirts, all kinds of crap. I mean, you should be pushing all that kind of stuff. When I disagree with you, Perch, I'll tell you what, yeah, please disagree. Yes, I don't mind. I'd just be nice to each other. Some people are dicks. No, we're not near the end. We're still going. Hey, to your topic you posted earlier this week, why doesn't the comic industry lean more into getting public's awareness out, advertising, all that? I don't know. I mean, that's what we were just talking about. I have no idea. It's free money. It's actually the cheapest, easiest money for them to do. And that kind of advertising, especially in Brown, is cheap. Now, that said, I am really curious to see if Daniel Cherry III is going to do more of this. He is a branding, cross-promotion, marketing guy. Money where his mouth is, rubber meets the road, whatever analogy you want to use. He is a reputation for being a killer with this stuff. Let's see what can happen. The part I mentioned in the stream a while back, Cherry is known, at least from people who know him and talking to colleagues and seeing things about how he behaved in other companies. He does not like to be number two of anything. He is a number one or die kind of guy. And it's going to be really interesting to see how that shakes out. He's a tough customer, and I don't think he's going to want to sit back and let Marvel be number one, let alone like Scholastic come in and eat their lunch. He's going to want to, make his numbers. And frankly, any executive coming into AT&T is getting a package that isn't just salary. They're getting stock. They're getting, targets. If they meet certain targets, they're getting more money. Most people at that level are going to want to make that money. I think that's one of the ways where Marvel in many ways has gone wrong, because a lot of their executive salaries don't have the same kind of targets, and those targets are probably clever. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. What can go on? Good. I'm glad you can't hear the rain. It's settling down a little bit, but man, if I could choose a writer and artist for Monica Rambeau, man, go for the move. I put, let's get Chris Claremont and John Byrne to reunite and do Monica Rambeau. That's what I would do. Let's just go for gold. Let's try that. They would never work together, but it would be nice. Yeah, there is a Fury series. There's a lot of Marvel series that have been announced at Disney Plus. I'm curious if they'll all come to fruition when all is said and done. It feels like they've got way more announced than they're going to be able to produce. So, red wine for you. Good score. You got to say which one though. It's not just red wine. I mean, you having a Merlot? You having a Shiraz? You having a What are you having? Rioja? What do you got going on there? And from where? I like a good Spanish red wine. I like Spanish pretty much anything. Yeah, lots of stuff. We're getting down to, hey, we're almost, oh my goodness, have I actually got to the bottom? I've skipped probably a million. Hey, people, vote them up. I will take a break for another drink if we yeah, please let me have another drink. It would all be good. Do I think people in this community will start knee-jerking at every single mention of the phrase inclusive and diverse and immediately consume wokeness? No, because I think the whole world is this way. It's not just comics. I mean, one thing that will either make you happy or sad. It makes me sad, but I think makes a lot of other people happy is this is playing out in games. It's playing out in TV and sports everywhere. I mean, people are so keyed into words, and it's on all sides. If I watched a guy in sports, over in a completely different field, lose it because somebody said, well, we're going to try and make baseball great again. And all he meant was that, we've had the pandemic and we want to have baseball, and baseball's ratings have slumped in recent years, and we want to make it great again. Yeah, because he said it that way, people attach that to Trump. And so suddenly, it's like, we got MAGA people running, Major League Baseball. And it's just, it's a zoo. People are keyed into words. So AT&T, I think, has said the word inclusion and diversity as part of their corporate marketing for at least 20 years. It's like standard text in their corporate marketing. And so, are they going to do more with it this time? Is there more to it? I don't know, but it's just been there for a while. And I think we need to leap at actions, not words more. Or do what you want, but I don't have time. I don't have time to do all that kind of stuff. Curious about my background. Well, my background is, okay, so a couple pieces. I've run a comic shop. So if you're going to run a comic shop for more than a couple years outside of the 90s, you need to be decent, the early 90s, I should say. You need to have at least some business. You need to have some business. If you don't have some business knowledge, then you're going to go out of business. You need to be able to balance your books. You need to be able to do other things. And then, sad to say, comics did not make the money for me. I wasn't going to be able to buy the luxury car if I stayed just doing comics. So then I did a lot of tech consulting, which is and worked in the tech industry. So worked for some tech companies directly and also as a consultant. And so it's given me a perspective on things. I don't know. There's a lot of people way better at everything than me. But that's where I'm usually coming from. Somebody said in one of the comments, when I talk about business, I appear more animated in my videos. And I'm not sure, I don't know, a good observation, I guess. Cool. I'll do more of that then. Why not? Okay. We got the answer here. A Dornfelder wine, a German red wine. Okay. Germans make sweet red wine. That is true. Good for you. Okay. Thoughts on DC when Dick Jordan? Yeah. By the way, by explanation, in my head, because I know a bit of other languages, and so you get to this point, and maybe it's just old age and I'm fooling myself. But when you do this, it muddles. When you see names, like your brain doesn't process it quite right, and then you struggle. And I know I've given some of the most hilarious, it's my signature style now, name pronunciations on things. And I know I've offended some people massively. I've had people get really after me for pronunciation of names. Anyway, I think that DC did improve in the mid 80s. I mean, DC arguably was more of a climb up because they had that really horrific into the 70s where their business imploded and then they had to dig themselves back up. And so I think that DC's rise back to strength in the 80s was probably more of a success story. I'll have to think about this question a little bit, Atomic Hound. I think there's an argument to be made that DC made more business progress than Marvel did, even though Marvel was doing really well in the 80s because DC was coming from more of a deficit. But I'll have to think about that. Now that'll turn around in the back of my head and I won't sleep tonight. Some people are drinking Smirnoff. Good for you. I stopped. I used to drink vodka, and then I was working with one company. I was working with Disney, and Disney, they're big vodka cranberry people. And you go out drinking with those guys, and it's vodka cranberries. And I just got very sick of vodka. There came a point where I'm like, I'm going for whiskey, and I'm not going back. And every now and then I'll do some tequila. So that's where things are at. Anyway. How much money does Disney have to hold out to produce TV and movies in their financial mess? So a lot of these things are cheap to make. The expensive stuff is often the talent. I think that The Mandalorian gave them a little bit of a gift in showing them how they could shoot and do things cheaper, and especially in this times a little bit safer. So, I think that it doesn't take as much as you think, but I also think their appetite. I think the other thing I think is people are so hot for the news that when Marvel solicits for scripts to be written, generally speaking, not all those scripts get made. They don't get greenlit into shows. So I think a bunch of the stuff that we're hearing about as projects that are being solicited, people are like, oh, it's going to be a show. And I do not think that it will actually, I don't think all these will actually come to be. We do need to make pro wrestling great again. It's just not, it's not what it was. That WWE Thunderdome thing is weird. I mean, good for them for doing something to kind of put a crowd in there, but it's yeah, it's strange. Absolutely true. You can't drink all day. You got to start somewhere. Why not the morning? Why not when you wake up? I'm just saying. Yeah, I mean, Monica Rambeau is one of my favorite characters. They are very capable of blowing that up and making her terrible. They almost did that. Well, I liked the Warren Ellis Next Wave book as something new and different. I did. I didn't like that they went to the well a lot of making Monica Rambeau, like her flashbacks where the Avengers were kind of mocking her and making her like get them sandwiches and things. I think because I think Roger Stern, some of the Avengers run that had Monica in it was amazing. And so I don't, I love that era. So to have somebody kind of retcon it a little bit that she was like their token female character and all the rest, I didn't very much appreciate. But yes, they could absolutely screw up Monica Rambeau. I believe Monica Rambeau is going to be in WandaVision. So maybe the screwing up will happen right there. That's very, very possible. Yeah, a ton of problems with UCS. I've heard the same. We've heard that a couple of comics have had problems with UCS. Lunar seems to be doing a better job, but I don't think DC is going to drop either. I think DC is going to actually care a lot less about that. Doesn't have to. Yeah, I got to read all those comics. Hey, somebody asked me, it's like, why you produce so many videos? Like, are you just sitting around doing videos all day? I will drive to the grocery store and I'll record a video, and I'll drive back and I'll record a video. There's 2 videos right there. Or I'm doing some work, I'm on some calls, and I record 5 videos. That's just, and then they just add up. So it actually doesn't take very much time, as you can tell from my crack video production capabilities. I mean, it's not taking that much time. I'm just saying, there's a guy who has a YouTube channel, like How to Drink, I think. And this guy, I'm in awe of this guy. He has an amazing channel. If you ever check that out, he is what is it? It's like I think it's How to Drink, and it's this guy, and he's a amateur bartender, and he is everything. He's got the lighting, he's got the set, he's funny. He shows his face. He's a good guy. I mean, like, that guy's videos are awesome. Love that guy. I'll be that guy someday, or I'll just do the drinking. One of those two. Let's see. Is there currently an ongoing Western comic at the Indies? Yeah, there is. And why am I spacing at the name? I think Image has one. There's a few out there, none from the big 2, of course. Yeah, God, why in the world am I not remembering? It will come to me. I promise. Does that make you impatient with your time for each book? I read fast, I guess. I don't know. How long does it take people to read a comic? I mean, generally, I'm coasting through it pretty quick. I think, it doesn't take me very long to read a comic. Every now and then I think about how much I'm paying, and then that's very depressing, and then I read slower. That's kind of how that goes. Do you think the industry would have been better if Marvel wasn't so clear-cut, number one, regardless of their quality? Because I think that's led to far more problems, especially with their huge ego. Yeah, yes, 100% I do. I think Marvel, so there's cultural things at the company. I think Marvel has a culture. And if you talk to people, I'm not talking to creators, by the way. I'm not talking about any of the writers, artists. One of the writers over at Marvel said I bash Marvel a lot. So I apologize. I actually rarely mean you as a creator. I'm actually talking more higher level at the management. At the management level and at the editor level, there is an ego problem. There's a cultural ego problem. Marvel very much believes they're number one. They believe they should be catered to. It's not unlike Disney. I mean, Disney has a little bit of that as well, but it's lasted multiple management turnovers at Marvel, which surprises me a little bit because you'd think that culture as new people came in would change. And even through the bankruptcy before and after, you talk to comic shops, Marvel was tough to deal with. They were arrogant, and they were number one, so they had somewhat of a right to be, but it also caused them to be very closed-minded with a lot of things. It caused them to not listen to ideas that they should have. It caused them to walk over the cliff at various times, and I think it's a shame. It's a big shame. One video I'm doing, by the way, that it is. Okay. So one video I'm doing, and it's a sad video. So I've got to figure out how to do it in a way that is not very, very depressing. But it's probably going to come across that way at some point, and that is I'm tracking where some of the careers, like who's made it really well in comics, who's had a good outcome. There's a couple of people who have had a good outcome. I mean, you could argue Jim Lee, of course, has had a great outcome, but there's other people like Stephen Platt, his story, and there's a bunch of people who've had, either medium of the road or bad outcomes of comics, and I think it's a fascinating story. Somebody recommended that I do this, and it was a good recommendation. I won't say who, but it's a good recommendation. And but the more I dig into it, it's more depressing than not. More people have a bad outcome than a good outcome. Now, granted, some people who have a bad outcome are okay with it. They got to live their dream a little bit in comics. They got to do some stuff. They're not unhappy, but they're not making it big. And then there's others who just became very disillusioned and just left the industry prematurely and went to work in games or other things. And it's tough. I mean, there's more bad outcomes than good outcomes. It is a little bit and then you get even people. Sorry, I'm not even finishing a thought. Now you get people like Rick Remender, who, of course, went indie and did his stuff. But he's got some successful books out there, but he's not a happy guy. And I think the ultimate, the other thing is the lure of a couple of years ago, where a lot of these properties were getting into doing, you're getting movie deals, you're getting Netflix deals and all that kind of stuff. And I think there was this gold rush kind of feeling. Of course, very, very few of them panned out. And you see some of kind of the mood of a Matt Fraction or Kelly Sue DeConnick or Rick Remender or some of the other people who I think expected more to happen. Even Mags with with her recent project, it hasn't been the great outcome for a lot of people. And that gold rush, I think, didn't pan out for a lot of people. And I think that's almost doubled down on kind of the dark kind of aspect. But it's anyway, I'm getting these videos, but it's tough to look at it's tough. Anyway, do I think we'll go back to event-free comics? I think it'd be smart, but no. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So you're saying two things here. I actually read it in two different ways. Event-free comics. Yes, you'll see those in the indies. You won't see them in Marvel and DC. That's just not going to happen. Marvel is definitely they're down the event path, and they're not going to leave it for a few years until they're drug away from it, kicking and screaming. And I think we're 5 years minimum from them slowing that process down. DC maybe it'll be interesting to see how 2021 rolls out, but I think the indies is where you're going to see creators tell their vision, but not in the big two. I thought the other way I was reading your question initially was free event comics. So there, once upon a time, there was this idea that you kick the event off with a free comic, and Free Comic Day briefly flirted with that. But now the Free Comic Day is just kind of a little bit of marketing material and everything else. I think that there's going to need to be a little bit of a cheap entry into some events or some free stuff to broaden the market. It's hard to get people hooked onto new things, saying, come in and take a gamble with $5. It's just that's going to be kind of tough. I don't know. Yeah, Disney folks are vodka cranberry people. You heard it here first. Interestingly enough, Verizon wireless people are mint julep people. No joke. That's where people order the mint julep. It's the trivia. Drinking trivia on Time with Perch. All right. Do I ever think we'll get comics will break your heart, kid? That is true. That is absolutely true. Yeah, Comic-Con brings a ton of money to San Diego and a ton of problems. People I mean, the people love it and hate it because it's it kind of destroys the city, but it does bring a lot of money. Why do I think Marvel was number one for so long? Well, I mean, part of it's momentum, which is something that I think a lot of people underestimate. Is one, DC had a huge shot in the late 70s where they had to take a huge step back and rebuild, and I think Marvel then got a lead, and I think by getting that lead, it allowed them to stay in that lead. If you think about how, if you're a pull box customer, think about how long it takes you to remove a title from your pull box. Maybe you're different, but most people go a lot longer than they want. They'll keep stuff in their pull box long after they've stopped enjoying it. And that same kind of mentality is why momentum is very hard to turn around. And that's why is why Marvel has stayed in top. They get the momentum. The New 52 shifted that momentum slightly, and even that DC then kept that for arguably longer than it should have. I think it was one of the things that it fooled Dan Didio and people at DC into thinking that the New 52 was more popular than it was, where the heat had started to cool down on it rather quickly, but they kept that momentum, and it actually caused them to make a big mistake. I think they didn't adjust fast enough, and I think that that hurt them. Yeah, what happened to Stephen Platt? It's a sad story. He also had he was demanding a huge page rate, so there's a lot of things going on there. What do I feel about comics becoming a stepping stone career for creators? I don't think it is for most people. I think that dream is there, but I think unless you're business minded and have a good sense, I think Brian Edward Hill comes to mind as somebody who understands that business. So comics can be something he can step in and out of and before writing screenplays and other pieces. But most, I think it's easier than it is, and it isn't. That's kind of one of the problems. Do I think Marvel's lack of sidekicks? I'm gonna drink some of this scotch. Just a moment here. We're just gonna. That's good. Burns all the way down. It's wonderful. Do I think Marvel's lack of sidekicks to bring into legacy roles one of the reasons why when they put a new character in an established role? Yeah, I do. I think that they don't build that, and I think Marvel's impatient. So generally speaking, if you take the big view, take the 40, 50-year view. I mean, take the X-Men, for example. Take the all new, all different, Wolverine, Colossus, Storm, X-Men. They came in, Chris Claremont's writing a giant size. Yes, it got a lot of attention, but it still took several years to build up an audience. And even if you look at the audience with the Dark Phoenix saga, which a lot of people say, oh, that was an amazing comic, which it was. But you look at the audience who was reading the Dark Phoenix saga versus the audience of X-Men when it was at the Mutant Massacre many years later. And that audience had grown a lot. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that it takes a long time to grow an audience. And so if you're trying to get, and Marvel today, and DC too, for that matter, they're like, they will give it, a year or two, and they'll be like, all right, moving on. It's like they get bored with things, or they bring in a new writer and they're like, part of the new writer wants to invent kind of their own stuff. Look at the Avengers Academy characters. That's always one that grabs me. Is you invested some time into the Avengers Academy characters, and it was a lot of young, new, diverse, new heroes. And then 5 years later, just they're gone, and they're struggling around to find new, young, diverse characters. Why? What are you doing? Like you've spent some time investing in these guys. What are you doing? I don't know. Rick Remender did get Deadly Classmate. That's true, and that's good. Yeah. As far as I know, Jeff Johns is not writing anything after Three Jokers. I've heard that he has a number of projects in the mix, but none of this. Everybody said Jim Lee says he has a couple projects in the mix, and then he recently said he wanted to do Wonder Woman, but I don't feel like any of those things are happening anytime soon. Asterix is great. European comics. In fact, I have a series of videos coming out. I am going to commit to, you're going to get at least one, probably more, review of a comic that's not a Marvel or a DC comic, and probably not an Image comic either, over the next several months. I'm going to just make sure there's at least one a week, and we're going to put a bunch of them out there. And kind of like I did with, it's kind of a sucker bet because a lot of people already knew about it, but we only find them when we're dead video. Lots more of that. So I hope that helps. I don't know what I'm saying, by the way. I have not switched from bourbon to scotch. It's still bourbon. I'm just talking a mile a minute, and I'm not paying any attention. It is still bourbon. But scotch is on my mind because I'm going to go have scotch with somebody hopefully very soon that I absolutely high respect. And well, I'd love to just do an interview with this artist, like in person. And even if there's nobody showing their face, at least you'll hear us drinking. That'll be such a good time. God, that'll be such a good time. I've had a good week of talking to some really, really great people. Let's see, what else we got? Any good horror comics coming out soon? Yeah, there are some. There's some good horror comics out there. I mean, I think that I mean, I don't know. And there's some that already exist. I mentioned Philadelphia earlier. There's a bunch of good horror comics out there. I'm liking the DC horror comics, to be honest. I heard that some people are not, but the Hill collection, I think they're pretty good. Yeah. How much do you think the higher ups in the big two give attention to creator reviews? 0. Sorry, I'll just absolutely 0. I think that, and by higher ups, I mean, if you're talking like a Joe Quesada or a Jim Lee, I'm sure they see stuff like that, and I'm sure they largely ignore it. If you're talking above that level, absolutely 0. I think if you put a gun to the head of like Bob Iger, he couldn't tell you who Jerry Conway is, or most of these people. I mean, he knows who Jack Kirby is probably, and Stan Lee. And beyond that, I don't know. Funnily enough, I think put a gun to the head of Bob Iger and asked him who Joe Quesada is, I doubt he would know. Anyway, I did read the Jeff Johns Shazam run. I thought it was okay. It wasn't heavy talked about, but I enjoyed it. It was all right. Read good comics. Yeah, thanks. Now I'm just getting to this. See you later, Ash. You probably are long gone by now, but thanks for stopping by. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by. We had a huge number here. Whenever I don't have a guest, I get a lot of people here. So that's no good, because then there's a lot of comments and I can't keep up with it all, and I'm not drinking. This is like the least I've drank in a live stream in forever. I did talk about it, and it was I'm okay with it. I'll see. And it's a different. How long before Marvel walks away from Diamond? I think they will do it when Diamond is clearly in trouble. I don't think that Marvel's going to walk away from Diamond like DC. I think Diamond is going to fail in some areas, and then I think Marvel will move. And part of this is because Disney and its subsidiaries tend to be very anemic to changing contracts. That said, again, rumor, I have no way of validating if this is true or not. The Marvel contract with Diamond, I thought I had heard it is up in 2021. So maybe in that renewal cycle. But I think it's inevitable. Diamond is just not evolving. Now, yeah, I think they're going to become a smaller and smaller and smaller player. What's the best way to hear about manga? Go to this. This is free. It's easy to do. If you're new to manga, download right now the Shonen Jump app. If you have an iPhone, you're going to be dealing with digital, but that's okay. This is not a bad place to start. Download that app. You have a huge library of comics that are free. And they basically put up the latest 3 chapters of kind of all the books there for free. And you can read them, check out, figure out art you like. And then they have very good ways of pointing you. Either you can pay, and then you can get the whole back catalog, and it's like pennies. Or they'll point you and help direct you. Like if you want to go with One Piece, they will show you the different ways you can get to One Piece. And then you can go to your local comic shop, please do that, or a Barnes & Noble or Amazon, and that's it. But if you're brand new to manga and you're trying to figure it out, the Shonen Jump app is the fastest, cheapest, easiest way to see a ton in a very short amount of time. And that's what I would recommend anyway. You want Southpaw back. I can't, I don't have time to take 2 shots of my drink, but I will try it. Holy shit. Okay. I'm drinking that too fast. I like Sam Keith. Sam Keith is one of those guys that's very much in my memory of a guy who was doing a lot in the 90s, of course. So I like Sam Keith. Oh, somebody brought up that, yes, to your earlier question. Yeah, Jeff Johns is doing a one-shot with Scott Snyder in December. So he will have a few other things, but I don't think he's got anything out. By the way, this is a very accurate statement. I think that this will be maybe a controversial comment. Let's see if I get a bunch of downvotes on this. I do not believe that the people who went for Warren Ellis, who brought up all this stuff and put up the website and brought up his scummy things. And granted, what's funny about all this is when Warren Ellis had his message board, there were a lot of people making the same comments about how he would, he would basically kind of solicit, photos and just kind of do scummy things. And those people were shouted out as being kind of, hateful, awful people. And they were banned from the message boards and other things. And the comics community really rallied around Warren Ellis, and the people there, a lot of people he mentored were very much on his side. And speak no ill of Mr. Ellis. And then, of course, years later, this year, the stuff all comes out. And a lot of the same people who gave full-throated defense, no pun intended, of Warren Ellis, now we're like talking about what a horrible person he was. So what changed? I think a little bit of it is some jealousy. I do think that plays into it. There was some people who, Warren Ellis was making some success outside of comics. I think that for some people, it became clear that Warren Ellis wasn't going to be the kingmaker that maybe they thought he was going to be. And so there was a little bit of revenge going on there. But yeah, I do think that there's something. I absolutely do. Can we stop calling Image an indie? Yeah, true. Have a great night, Bobby. Thanks for stopping by. I'm glad you did. Is this fun, by the way? I'm just talking at you for I hope you're having a good time. I do. Something Killing the Children is great. Please, that is a great book. Definitely true. Hey, I agree with this, by the way. I think I like Wally. And I don't think Barry is now, granted, the Williamson run and kind of what's going on has been a great comic. I've really enjoyed that. I've enjoyed Barry Allen in his hands, but I don't know. I think I'm not as big a fan of Barry Allen as others. That's really true. European comics are totally underappreciated. Yes, absolutely. Ice Cream Man is another good comic. I agree. That's an anthology book. It's funny. There's people who absolutely love this book and absolutely hate it. It's very, very binary. I'm not sure why. It just is. Manga does nothing for me. I think it's like anything. I suspect Horizon Brave. I think you'd find some manga that would work for you. It's not all sizes fit us all. One of the flaws actually to manga is if you enter into that and you're not tuned into, like My Hero Academia or Naruto or One Piece or one of the big ones, it's hard to then find your way to a lot of the niche stuff, unless of course you live in Japan. And this is where I'm going to post some photos up. I meant to do that before I went on the air here tonight, but I need to post some photos up of like what it's like going into a bookshop in Japan and seeing all the manga. This is where, just imagine, this is what I want to describe for you. Like imagine you walk into a Walmart and you see the floor there, just one floor Walmart. But now imagine that there's 9 floors. And floor number 1 is nothing but games. It's just video games everywhere. And then floor number 2 is nothing but books about video games. And floor number 3 is nothing but manga. You've just got these tables and there's just piles of manga everywhere. And it is like, it blows your mind. And then like floor 4 is toys, like little plastic, they got the capsule machines with toys and you got models and you got all this kind of stuff. You never want to leave this floor. And then like floor 5 is kind of softcore porn. And then floor 6 is like super creepy porn. And then floor 7 is like really, really disturbing porn. And then you go down and you're like, hey, there's a basement. You go down to the basement and then it's like the most unimaginable horrors ever. And then you come back up to the manga floor, like floor 3. And then you have a good time there and you go get some ramen down the street and life's pretty good. That's my experience in Japan, by the way. The basement is always horror. And I used to do this thing where people would come over to visit me in Japan, or I'd take people out to Akihabara or Roppongi or some of the neighborhoods within Tokyo. And I would like, hey, let's go check out, Yodobashi Camera or, these big giant stores like this. And, it's like, hey, look, it's the fun, floor of, toilet seats with control panels on the side of them. And now here's some video games. And hey, now let's go check out the basement. And the way it often worked is you'd have the escalator going down to the basement. And then you'd have to walk across the floor to get the escalator going back up. So as you're coming down the escalator, you realize that you're making the transition from, video games into horror. And it is unspeakable horror of pornography. And but it's too late. You can't go back. So now then I used to, it was the joke. You'd play on the tourists. You'd like take them down there and like, I got you. And then I was a terrible person. What can I say? The other thing, as long as I'm giving memories of Japan, there's a place in Shinjuku, and this is no shit truth. And I think you can see this on YouTube. There's some videos of this place where you go in and they seat you around a giant tank, and inside the tank are fish. And you then sit at your table. You got like a little booth, and it's next to the tank of water, and the fish are floating around. And then they hand you a little fishing pole. And then you put the fishing pole into the water and you pull out the fish. And then when you pull out the fish, like the little person appears, comes over, and then takes the fish and then pins it down and then chops it on up and gives you some sashimi out of it, and then puts it into a stew. And it's all happening in real time right there in front of you. Yes, real fish. And this is I forget the Japanese the English is Catch a Fish restaurant. And you go look this up. It's a real thing, and it blows your mind. And also, I used to take people to that thing, and I took this one person to that restaurant, and then later discovered that they had like a primal fear of fish. And so that was I'm a dick. Anyway, it was amazing. It's very cruel, probably, but also it's amazing. So, you know, cruel, amazing, somewhere in there. Yeah. Where do we go? What do we have? Let's see. I'm sorry for these little segues into crazy Japan. Japan is one of those places where, like, you know, that they say that you know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. The argument is what happens in Japan never happens. It's so crazy that it never actually happens. So Japan is wonderful, though. The great thing part about Japan as well is you can go, and it is safe. Like, I have wandered around. Most of it is safe. There's some neighborhoods in Shinjuku that I think still mildly run by the Yakuza that you don't want to like wander into. And the other thing, and then I need to stop this because I'm just going on and on, is that every now and then you run into stores, and on the door to the store or the bar or the club or whatever it is, there's a little sticker there with like two hands, and the two hands are like palm out, and the text says "No foreigners." And what that means is that it's a place for no foreigners. And if you go into that place, they're going to beat the shit out of you and probably take your money and your passport and whatever else. And so what happens is a lot of people from America, they go over there, they get drunk, and then they see some really cool looking, you know, club, usually an adult club, and they see the no foreigners sign, and then they try and go in there, and then they ignore the bodyguard saying you can't come in here, and then they get rolled. And that happens a lot. I'm now scaring people about Japan. But Yodobashi camera is amazing. There's one in Akihabara. There's one in Shinjuku. There's a few. Yodobashi camera. It's not a camera shop. They do sell some cameras there, but holy crap, it's amazing. Anyway, you can get your no super chats. That's right. I don't do super chats. That's just me. So save your money, buy some comics. That's what you should do. I don't do this for money. What I do this for is the love of talking to. I really do enjoy talking to all of you, and I can't be in a comic shop talking to you right now, so we're doing it this way. But take your money and buy some comics. Entertain, buy yourself a drink. Join me next time, and that's what you need. Dick and Corey, absolutely. Some people pine for Dick and Barbara, but Dick and Corey, that's I'm shipping Dick and Corey. That's what I'm doing. What do I think the odds are of Brian Q. Miller or Sterling Gates returning to DC? Not full time. I don't. I think the odds are very, very slim. What's going on? There we go. Today was a positive day on comics Twitter. It was more positive. It was kind of a shitty week, and then there was a lot of fighting. But today was way more positive. A lot of good shout outs and good stuff, and yeah. A lot of good stuff. Again, thank you. As some people are heading out, I'll wrap this up in about 10 minutes or so. So bring your questions in more. My voice is hanging in there. Robert, thank you for offering to. I should have tagged you in. I'm not even keeping up. I got 3 computers here, and I'm not even looking at any. But anyway, I should have done that. But next week we'll have some fun. And yeah, I think I'm going to have I believe I have a comic artist joining me next week who you guys, I think, all know. So that will be fun. Yeah, I've got some good interviews. I'm having good conversations with people. It was a good, there's a lot of good things that happened this week. Japan is, yeah, in fact, sorry, we'll turn this back into Japan talk. It's actually better if you're older, I think. If you're in your 20s or 30s, it's a little bit easier to adjust. You'll have a better time, I think. Yes. Japan is kind of racist toward Koreans. Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, also toward Chinese and Vietnamese and Taiwanese and pretty much every other. I mean, yeah, it is. I don't know what's admirable of me, but thanks. Yeah, I appreciate. Why am I so awesome? No, I'm not. There's a lot of nice comments. Suddenly, I must have said something everybody liked. Everybody's being very, very nice now. Thank you. How do I type with boxing gloves on? With my face. That's what I do. Other questions, poo type. So I've said this before, but for new people, why the poo avatar that I use on Twitter and other things? I literally, when I first created the Perch account, I went looking for a cartoon character and I put in cartoon thinking into Google. And I got the image search, and the first thing that came up was kind of Pooh Bear, kind of thinking, and I used that, and the rest is history. I do not have a Pooh Bear cosplay costume, although guy at Marvel sent me, a woman at Marvel, actually, not a guy, sent me a Pooh T-shirt that sometimes I wear now, and there you go. But very nice. Oh, Milk and Cheese! I'd love to see Milk and Cheese back together. Yes, that was a great comic. Absolutely. I hope they put more emphasis on Green Lantern. It's weird because the Morrison Green Lantern run is not bad, but it feels like it's almost let the steam out of Green Lantern. Like Green Lantern does not seem like as big a deal or as integrated into DC as it used to be. And the crazy part is, like with a lot of the Justice League adventures that Snyder wrote, I wonder if Snyder didn't really like Green Lantern or what, because a lot of those situations, Jon Stewart could have just kicked some ass at. And it felt like Jon Stewart was very much in the background in that comic. And maybe that's just my opinion. I just think there's a lot thing. This would be great set in a bar. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to a place in Seattle. I'm going to grab an artist who's here that I absolutely adore. We're going to do one of these in a bar, drinking scotch. And it'll be great. I'll be great. If he will be kind enough to do it, that would be amazingly wonderful. A lot of positivity. Yes, there's a lot of positivity. I appreciate it. I love the audience. I think I have a great group of people who come in and chat, and I love the comments that come in. It's always really, really awesome. I'm having a good time. If I wasn't having a good time, I certainly would not be putting out 3 videos a day. It's not for the money. I'll tell you that. What else is going on here? Any good stories from the last 10 years I should read? There's a lot of stuff in there. I thought this is further back than 10 years. I thought the Morrison Justice League way back was quite good. I like Christopher Priest's brief bit, even though it was very fill-in on Justice League. I liked, Snyder with that one arc in Justice League where Snyder had Superman trapped in the no sun dimension and everything else. I thought that was a really, really, like, probably his highlight on that book was my bit. But that's probably, I'm sure there's a couple others. Do I see any lingering result consequences coming from Justice League Odyssey? No, I don't, which is a shame. I think they teed up some really nice stuff in Odyssey, and I feel like they're going to tell a good, complete story, but I don't think anything's really going to come of it. It definitely, Jessica Cruz, I think that has been a series that, I want to say redeemed her, because that's not the right word, but it elevated her in a really nice way. And one would hope that they'll do some really great stuff with Jessica Cruz coming out of that, because they did do some great stuff with that character. And, I hope they do. I hope they do more. Is it okay to defend and like Tom King's Batman run? Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ian, who was here a while ago, likes that run. I don't hate it as much as others. I think I didn't love it. And I felt like the problem for me is stuck in my head is I really hated the bait and switch with the issue 50 and the wedding. I really hate it. I think that did a lot of damage to fans and to the run. And then I think that everything following 50, even though I thought the Mr. Freeze arc after that was pretty damn solid, I feel like it became like Tom King versus the fans, and then his run got cut short, and then there's, some editorial interference, or maybe there wasn't, and it just, I feel like it went sideways on me. But I mean, it wasn't my favorite run. I don't think it's as terrible as people say. I think in DC, the Bendis Superman run, to me, has absolutely been atrocious. Now, there's other people who really enjoyed it, but Christ, for me, that was awful. Anyway, I do like the Diana on Justice League Dark. Justice League Dark is another one. Very, very subtle little story. Man, a lot of night. You guys are making me blush over here. Or maybe it's the bourbon, actually. It's probably the bourbon. Anyway, I just got Batman's Grave is pretty solid. I think that's pretty good. It's a little wonky, but there's some good stuff. If I went into the comic business again, would I start with a new store or purchase an existing store? Well, I am going into the comic business again. I will have a store open up at the beginning of the year, which is only a few months away now. I'm trying to decide if I want to open up in this region or down in Denver, Colorado. It'll be one of those two. And I will start it out as a new store, but I'm purchasing a ton of existing stock. So put it this way. Will I open up a store again? Yes. How do I know this? Because I now have 2 storage units filled with comics, and I continue to buy comics. I'm going up on Tuesday to buy some more comics from a store that's closing. And so, put it this way. I'm opening up a store, or my wife's going to murder me, in which case it will be, Mrs. Perch will be doing this show going forward. And she'll have some good things to talk about, but it will not be me anymore because I will be dead. So, we can all look forward to that. What else? Yeah, a bunch of stuff. Are you into the upcoming Dune comics movie? Not yet. I mean, I hope for it to be good, but I haven't seen enough of it to know whether it's going to be good or, shitty. Could be either. I have no idea why no one's made good use of Quasar. It's like Marvel every now and then. It's another case where it's like, we want to get into space and cosmic. And it's like, cool, you should do that. Hey, you got Quasar. Well, no, screw Quasar. Let's do something else. I don't know. Anyway, things are winding down. Yes, thank you for joining, Robert. I appreciate it. We will have you back on again, of course. You're a great guest. These people are wrong. Is it bad? Is it bad that Bendis is my first Superman run? Well, not bad, but I feel bad for you. There's been good Superman runs for sure. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you enjoy it, it's a good run. And this is what always kind of irks me about, fans on any side. If you're enjoying a comic, then happy days. If you're hating a comic, stop buying it. And you shouldn't have to apologize for hating a comic. I'm watching this go on right now with the X-Men. There's people who are not into the X-Men right now by Hickman. If that's you, if you don't like it, then, don't feel ashamed. Yeah, and nobody should tell you, like, how dare you not like. I always hate these people like, LOL, the comic's the best it's ever been. Well, for you, sure. Good for you. You're enjoying a comic, but it shouldn't go. Cut that shit both ways. Like a comic, don't like a comic, whatever. Is suspension of belief in modern comics something that should be avoided? I think you have to suspend your belief a lot in modern comics. I think you have to do a ton. Where are located? I think you mean me, and I think the answer to that is the Seattle. I'm up here in Seattle, which, by the way, for what it's worth, actually, I'll get this too. This is the other problem with Tom King is that he responded to a lot of criticism by coming off like a dick. That's absolutely true, and I think it was a classic case of you cannot be sarcastic to some of the critics, and many of them will go away, and you won't kind of feed it. But he did it. He definitely leaned in and started that whole "I need a bodyguard" stuff was like a stunt, and I think the only person entertained by that was Tom King. It was not by others. Anyway, I'm in the Northwest. So for those of you who are watching the news, I want to set the record straight on a couple things. We are not under perpetual siege here in the Seattle area. There is not like anarchy in the streets. Yes, we did have the Nation of Chaz for a brief period of time, but that was a joke. And I don't mean it wasn't a joke. The business owners in that area certainly suffered. It wasn't a joke, but it was a joke in terms of if you're watching the news from anywhere outside of Seattle, it was it maybe looked like a big deal. Inside of Seattle, it was a very tiny little area of kind of goofballs doing stupid things, some illegal things certainly, and I'm not downplaying what they did, but you turn on the news and it's like the city's on fire. Seattle's is not that bad off. Definitely the protests have gotten out of control. The business climate is not healthy here. for a number of different fronts. The protests are one of them. But I mean, Portland is in much worse shape than Seattle is. Seattle's not bad, and keep in mind, Seattle's surrounded by water. So if you don't live in Seattle proper, if you live in, say, West Seattle, or you live in Bellevue, or you live in, Tukwila or Renton or Everett or Redmond or any of these places, you often have water as a barrier between you and whatever craziness is going on. Other than one protest that spilled into Bellevue, which was kind of surprising to everyone. And it wasn't really a protest. I mean, there was a protest, but it was some people from out of state who came in and said, hey, let's loot the real expensive mall. And that's what they did. Generally speaking, anyway. Will the new shop have mail order? You bet your ass it will. Absolutely it will. And I'm going to have a great online. I should have Mrs. Perch on. She would not. She does not want to come on. But yeah, I should. She's way smarter than me. That's for sure. Colorado Springs is beautiful. I'm excellent. And thank you. I appreciate you driving there. That's not a light drive. Do I believe John Kent can be saved from Bendis? Well, I mean, at some point, Bendis won't write him anymore, but they're not going to de-age him. So, I don't know about the others in the chat, but I would be interested if you go through Indie Solicits Monthly. If you do that on your channel, send me a link, and I would subscribe and promote 100%. Can you have George Perez? God, I wish. If I can, I will. I don't know. There's still, there's a bunch of people who view me as, I'm Comicsgate adjacent, apparently, is what I hear. I don't know why, because a lot of the people who are most obsessed with coming in and downvoting and calling me a cuck are Comicsgate people. Not all of them. I mean, you can't say Comicsgate equals everyone. There's many different people. And there's a lot of people who are, I think, very friendly to my channel from certainly Comicsgate, and there's people who are very friendly to my channel who are not Comicsgate. So I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm told that because I open up topics. The one that really got people pissed off lately was I did the video saying, has female art changed over the years? And I try, these topics come up. I don't pull them out of thin air. I see people talking about them on Twitter. People send them to me as topics. I then talk about them. And oftentimes I don't fully agree. Like there's the topic of, does Marvel have a quota of hiring genders and different sexuality people? Do they have a quota and the answer is no, I don't believe there is. Some people definitely believe there is. I don't. I did the video on why I don't think the social agenda stuff is this big overarching plot. I tried to put some analysis there. And I had a lot of people super pissed. I had some definite angry people there saying I was wrong and bad and liberal and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure exactly why I'm simultaneously Comicsgate and not Comicsgate, but I don't know. But I think there are creators who are afraid if they came on and then did an interview with me that they would be suddenly labeled one of the baddies, to which I think anybody with a brain who actually listens to the channel realizes that's not the case, but it is what it is. I will say, if there's ever a concern of a creator that coming on and doing something with me would impact them negatively in their career, they shouldn't do it. I'm the first one to say, don't do it. Like, you need to pay the bills, and you don't want to blow that up talking to, guy with Pooh Bear avatar. So, take care of your money first. That said, I do wish people would let it go. I mean, I don't know. It's all silly. It's all very, very silly. Lots of good stuff. The Tomasi stuff on Superman is great, by the way. Totally agree. I will try and get George Perez, 100%. I do not believe Perch reads all the comics. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I'm not reading. I'm reading most of the comics. That's fair. You caught me. I've read my share of hentai though. I've been to the basement in Japan. I'm just saying. I like the Excalibur book more than Hickman's main title. I want to like the Excalibur book. There's something that doesn't fit for me, and I don't know what it is exactly. Maybe it's just Teenie Howard's style. I maybe, but I don't. That's too simple. There's something about that book that just. You know what? And this is me. I'll horrify some people in the chat by saying this. I am not the big Rogue Gambit fan. I've never been a big fan of that pairing. I always felt it kind of insufferable. When Kelly Thompson did that book, I know a ton of people liked it. I did not. It doesn't work for me. works for others, great. So I just, when I see them, there's almost a gut eye rolling reaction I get every time. I don't know why. I don't know why. Well, now I want to go see Zombie Tramp. Sorry. Yeah, Tomasi is great. I hope they do elevate him. What are some of the best comic runs that get overlooked more often than not? I mean, Venditti's Hawkman run immediately springs to mind. I think the Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil run right now is a great run that's being overlooked. You know, it's weird because it feels like both Marvel and DC, but especially Marvel, it's like they can only market like 3 things at a time. And it's like, oh, we got Donny Cates on a new book. We got to market that. It's like, well, you can do more than 3 books, and you know you've got some really good stuff in the bank that people are putting some effort into. That you know you're not marketing. I don't know what. Yeah, I hope the one shop isn't closing in Pike Place Market. Yeah, I'm very good friends with the owner there. We pal around a little bit, and he's a great guy. That store is an establishment. That's the oldest store in North America, believe it or not. The Pike Place Golden Age Collectibles and Pike Place Market is very it's stable. It's not going anywhere for sure. And that's a good guy. That guy will treat you fair. He and I have had a very good working relationship for many a year, for sure. I need to speed this up. I'm gonna, let's see, 2 or 3 more minutes. We will run a favorite DC Rebirth run, Hawkman. I really did like that run. Portland is becoming like Mad Max. That's true. Dever, yes, I went to O'Leary's in Tacoma many times. I was also a big friend with that guy. So there's some good people there. O'Leary's, yeah, that was kind of a sad, bit of a sad story there. Do I think it's better when comics use the sitting president? I prefer when they do their own thing. I think it dates them a little bit, and I think they always screw that big up again. When I have the shop, I'm planning to do the face reveal when I have the shop. My face is not exciting. I promise. You're not gonna care. David F. Walker claims a pro called him the N-word. Which pro do you think it is most likely to have said it, and why was Alex DeCampi? I doubt it was Alex DeCampi. It may have been. I mean, I will say, and it's one of the reasons hypocrisy bothers me. So having been to San Diego Comic-Con a lot and been to Old Town up in San Diego and had drinks with people, the amount of creators that start to whip out the N-word when they get some drinks out of them is more than a few. I'll just say that. It's more than a few. And some of them are very vocal about, you know, the bad racist people. And it's like, I can remember you shouting the N-word at somebody out the window in Old Town. I just saying, you know, this is, I should have filmed more of this. Perch, you are a teddy bear. Yeah, pretty much. I am. I'm CG, and I think it's a great channel. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for supporting. Yeah, Critical Blast. I always support Critical Blast. They're good people too. I mean, shit. I don't. A lot of you guys are great. I will fully admit, I think it's your relationship friendliness. I don't think it is thinking critical or less. I took a lot of hits with. I said positive things about Just Some Guy. He has a video channel at some point, so I think he had a good analysis on something, and that made people nuts. I don't think Wes also, I think it bugs him that he gets lumped into that as well. So anyway, that, I mean, you know, I appreciate, by the way, you give me the chance to just listen for what I am. I am what I am. Am I interested in Batman The Long Halloween? Hell yes. I'm absolutely interested in that. I absolutely are interested in that. Would you like to do a team up video on death metal? Yes, for sure. I absolutely will. I will. I'm getting myself back under. I took on too many projects. Now I'm getting some under my belt. I'm in the third quarter on my comic, which is a good place to be. And hopefully I get to announce something there in a week or two. Got to do it. A lot of talk about Comicsgate. I don't know. I am the Beyonder. Can I pull out my disco outfit? That is just funny. Perch, pervert, convert. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, I need to denounce 7 times a day. Yeah, it feels like it. Any thoughts on heavy metal going monthly again? I hope they can sustain it. I think that'll be good. When Perch shows his face like Wes, we'll see a Korean dictator. And I see just kind of older, mostly white guy. That's what you're going to see. More gray hair than I like. Anyway, got a bad haircut. I got like the now I'll say I got the why do I space the Richard Meyer haircut? Not completely, but I go in and it's like it's COVID times, so I go in to get a haircut, and like I should have known. My instincts like don't do this, and they seem really really timid. And I've got the mask on, they've got the mask on, and immediately it's like I like getting haircuts ever. I don't like sitting in that chair and being trapped while somebody works on me with scissors. So I'm sitting there, and then they're really nervous and everything else, and it's like, just short and tidy it up. And they whip out the buzz shaver thing, and I'm like, it's going to go wrong. Sure enough, they just shave it way too up the sides, and I look like a dope. So then I have to come home and just try and fix it up myself. But anyway, stupid haircuts. Anyway, now I'm going to be even double the comic skate because I mentioned the guy. Yes, mostly white guy, mostly white. That's true. Not completely white, but mostly white. It's the reason you have poo on your avatar recorded videos without pants on. I always have. Wait a minute. Yeah, pants are on. Pants are on for now. Can I explain the appeal of Mariko Tamaki? Cheap, friendly. It does good pitches. Delivers on time. That's what I hear. All right. I am going to wind it up. Do I believe the big 2 out of 3 are actively keeping down the superstar artists since the image fiasco? Yes and no. I do think that is on people's minds, and I think that is a factor. I absolutely think so. Whew. Hey, I hope everybody had a great week. This was a week that at least it didn't end with some kind of crazy nonsense. So there you go. And we'll see what happens next week. Things to look forward to real quickly, and then we'll sign off. So next week, I do think we'll get kind of the first trickle of news coming for DC 2021. I think that's something to look forward to, and I think some of that's going to be pretty nuts. Thank you, by the way. I'm glad you had fun. That's the important thing. Have fun. So I do think, I'll put this up here saying a huge thanks, which is very true. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I think we're going to get some DC news. I think that it'll be interesting. The second issue of Ten of Swords being X Factor is a weird hiccup, but then I think things will really get rolling the week after that. And I'm going to continue having some stories about the business, some story about history, but mostly I just really enjoyed talking to all of you today. Had a huge crowd, which is great. Thank you again. If you get a chance, hit the like button or hit the downvote button, whatever you feel like hitting. It's all good. And if you're a comic creator, if you're in the industry, if you've got a friend or somebody and you want to point them this way, please do. Would love to talk to them. Would love to interview people, especially up and comers, veterans, anyone. And next time somebody says, "Hey, I think that guy is a bleeding heart liberal or super CG," just be like, "Yeah, he's wishy-washy. He's neither of those. He sucks." Go with that. Anyway, I'm gonna drink some more bourbon. I hope everybody has a great week, great weekend. Stay out of the rain, stay out of safe, and all that kind of stuff. Read comics. Thanks for listening.